How many sets do you need in a workout? If you do too little, chances are you're not going to be growing at your best. You won't get as strong as you could if you did a bit more. If you do too much, you might risk hurting your recovery, and even worse, you could potentially get injured. The truth is, there is a sweet spot somewhere in between which maximizes your progress and minimizes your chances of injury. What is that sweet spot? To find out, keep watching. The sweet spot in which you should be training begins with what's called minimum essential volume, which is the minimum number of sets that you need to keep progressing forward. And the upper limit of that sweet spot is called maximum recoverable volume, which is the maximum amount of sets that you can get away with, beyond which you will not recover. So that's where you should be training. Now, how to manipulate that sweet spot based on your training goals, your training experience, and what you do inside of the gym, that's exactly what we are getting into in this video. Now, throughout this video, whenever I talk about doing a certain number of sets, we are talking about hard working sets. It's not warm-up sets. It's not sets that are kind of difficult but still easy. It has to be a defined amount of effort with each set that contributes towards the working volume. If it's anything lesser than that, it's junk volume. It's not really contributing to progress forward, and that's not what we are considering. Now, how do we define a hard set? Let's just say it is a set that is taken kinda close to failure. When I say failure, I mean your exercise technique starts to break down and you will not be able to maintain proper form. So let's say you could get 2, maximum 3 reps more without breaking your form down. That is a hard set. If you could get 4, 5, 6 more reps, being dead honest with yourself, that's not a working set. And the fact of the matter is, most people don't train as hard as they should be. They say that they're having 2 or 3 reps in the tank, but in reality, if you look at their technique and you look at the kind of effort they're putting in, they probably have 6 or 7 reps left in the tank. And that's not what we are talking about. Now, there's divisive opinions on which is a better way to train, whether you should stay close to minimum essential volume or maximum recoverable volume. Me personally, I like to train closer to MEV. The reason being, every rep and every set that you do counts and it contributes towards getting better. So you start with the minimum number of sets that you need, and as you hit a stagnation point, as you plateau, that's when, in order to make more progress, you inch closer towards your potential by adding in an extra set or adding in a new exercise variation. Whereas if you're already training as many sets as you can possibly recover from, then once you hit a stagnation point, it's really hard to add something on top of it. It's really hard to progress further. Now, let me give you a simple guideline for what would be a minimum essential volume, the number of sets that you absolutely need in order to progress further. So, you would need about 8 sets per muscle group per week of training in order to make some progress. If you're a beginner, you can probably get away with as little as 6 sets per muscle group per week. And even if you're coming back to training after a long gap, the same applies. But what does 8 sets actually look like spread across a week? So let's say you're talking about squats, which is mainly targeting your quadriceps. Okay, so you'd be doing squats on Monday for 3 sets, leg press on Wednesday for 3 sets, and then say Bulgarian split squats for 3 sets on Friday. That already is 9 sets. That's more than the minimum essential volume which I was recommending. So it's not really a lot on paper. Now add in all the other exercises that you target for the rest of the muscle groups in your body, and that makes it a fairly manageable, lower volume training session. But realistically, the sweet spot for most people would be somewhere between 10 to 12 sets per muscle group per week, which is only slightly higher than what I suggested. And the absolute upper limit, which is the maximum recoverable volume, would be somewhere around 20 sets per muscle group per week, which is a lot. On paper, this might look like, rather than doing 3 sets of 3 exercises across the week for a given muscle group, you'd be doing 5 exercises for 4 sets each. That is a lot. High volume training is not for everyone. It's certainly not for beginners. But if you do decide to train as high as 20 sets per week, understand that it's not sustainable and you will have to take a deload week, which means you strategically reduce the amount of volume that you do so that your body gets a chance to recover. And you would be rather using this as a peak week wherein you come closer to the finish of a training program and you peak your training volume towards the end, knowing that you're going to take a decent break after that. If you're not going to do that, it's not sustainable. Now let me give you a professional tip when it comes to using high volume training in a smart way. You can train most of your body with 10 to 12 sets per muscle group per week, and you can choose just that one body part which might be lagging behind, which you want to focus on more than the others, or a lift or a movement that you want to get stronger at. Train that with high volume. Make that the priority or the centerpiece of your training, and push that closer to 20 sets per muscle group per week for one training block, which might last for 4 or 6 weeks. And after that, drop the volume back down to normal levels, which is again closer to 10 sets per muscle group per week. That additional volume, when you're trying to specialize on a given body part, might be sustainable and also productive, given that the other body parts are not being overworked. That's a smart training strategy with a specific goal in mind. Now, let me show you a chart on your screen which basically shows the rep range that you should be training for based on the training adaptation that you want. Whether you want to build strength and power, or you want to build muscle, which is hypertrophy, or you want to work on muscular endurance, which is having the ability to sustain work for a long amount of time. That is more endurance related. What's your training goal? The training volume that's optimal for you depends on that. Now that you saw what different training goals can look like, the volume per exercise based on your training goal might look something like this chart right here. Now let me quickly explain how your training volume varies based on your training goal. So if you're training for strength or power, you're taking longer rests between each set. You might be taking 3, 4, even 5 minutes of rest between sets, because what matters is the absolute amount of weight that you lift, or the absolute amount of power that you generate, which requires you to be fully recovered. In this case, you don't really need that much volume. What matters is in each session, you hit that peak number, you hit the top number compared to what you did last week. So you keep getting stronger and stronger, and that leads to the adaptations that you want. Now, hypertrophy or building muscle, that's where volume actually comes into play. Most bodybuilders or people that are geared towards building muscle focus on volume, because that is what maximizes progress at an advanced level. And finally, if you're training for muscular endurance, if you're an endurance athlete, you're going to be training in the higher rep range, which according to textbook is more than 12 reps, but realistically we are talking about close to 20 reps, and that's very high volume. The loads are much lesser because you're going to be doing so many reps. You're feeling the burn in your muscle, the lactate buildup, and the rest between sets is actually very less. It's probably less than 30 seconds, due to which you will not be able to accumulate that much volume. You're under recovered, you're lifting lesser weight, so naturally the amount of volume that you accumulate will be lesser compared to someone that's taking longer breaks and is lifting heavier loads. Okay, so I delved into a lot of technical details, and if you're still watching this video, you're one of the real ones. I appreciate you. And if you enjoyed this video, you should definitely watch this, which is talking about how to reduce your training duration while maximizing your results. Until next time, take care, stay hungry.